Have you ever thought that life's just a little bit too quiet and a little bit too grey?
Ooh, wiggle wiggle.
That was me in 2016, and then Planet Coaster came out and ended the massive void that happened after Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. Now, for some reason, after that amazing game was made, the entire genre of roller coaster tycoon-esque simulators just died. There was none, apart from the really, really bad ones that weren't simulators. They were cash grabs. And let's not talk about Roller Coaster Tycoon and what is currently going on with them as a franchise. Let's instead focus on Planet Coaster and how good that is as a game, and why that is, and maybe talk about a few of the things that we don't like necessarily about it, but which they could improve upon. That sounded really pretentious. Let's keep it in! Then came Planet Coaster, my game of the year from 2016. Developed by Frontier, the same team that brought us Space Truckers, Elite Dangerous, returned to us and then brought us the most design-heavy iteration of a theme park builder that I've ever seen. Now, as someone who normally avoids early starts and pre-orders and shit, I just had to hear the company's name and I was convinced that this game would fill that area of my soul that has previously been filled with just donuts and nachos and cake for the last few years. Frontier had previous involvement in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, meaning that if anyone had my trust in making a spiritual successor to that game, it was definitely these guys. From there, my involvement grew into the beta. I watched their vlogs, I took part in the community forums. It was the first time that a game had ever really suckered me into its hype before it actually developed its own hype, I guess. Perhaps the most reassuring thing is that these updates keep happening to this day, with Steam Workshop and the anniversary update that recently came out adding things such as picnic tables. That's a big deal apparently. See?
Huge round of applause for picnic benches! Yes!
Planet Coaster is at its very core a creative toolkit. It tries to disguise itself as a bit of a business simulation from the point of view of park management, but money becomes so inconsequential after the start of a game that it's more just about the experience of building than the difficulty itself. The game features 3 modes: Sandbox, where everything is unlocked and money just isn't there at all; Challenge Mode, where the player builds on an empty lot but still has to research certain rides and scenery, and also money is a thing; and finally Career Mode, which was by far the most criticised area of the game. The game was, however, praised heavily for its theming, with the in-game stores and shops featuring mascot characters, the world having its own language of Planko, which is a thing that you can totally fucking go and learn, by the way, look at this. It also boasted excellent sound designs, with rides featuring themed music but also a heavy weighted metallic sound that made the motions and movements of them feel like they were taking place as close as you needed them to in a headset. The ability to ride your creations was back, meaning that people were creating these fantastic seizure-inducing headache rides, but unfortunately, or fortunately depending on your stance on the matter, VR support was nowhere to be seen, and still pretty much isn't. Now, it's easy to forget that LEGO pretty much started all of kids' creativity with building, and that is very much what this game plays on, is the fact that you can build whatever you want to build in this virtual world without spending hundreds of pounds on pieces of plastic like this. However, this toolkit is also a fantastic thing in the sense that you give people the means to create something, and they do. And then they show that thing that they've made that they're happy with and they're proud of to other people, and that spreads and gets more people wanting to create. Hypothetically at least. Buildings are a great example of this in the game world, where parts and pieces just seem to click together in a very simplistic manner on the surface, but the instant you start to click that advanced placement options tool, then people have recreated cities, monuments, and completely out of this world concepts using the game engine. This unfortunately is what seems to cause the AI's issues with regards to difficulty. Take this for example. This has a low approval rating by people because it lacks scenery. People don't want to queue for hours in what looks like a grass desert. So you start to add scenery to make it look more appealing, and then you can inflate the price of the ride to accommodate this and hopefully have a decent business model because of that. The problem is when you have so many things that you could decorate around the ride with, the game has no idea if it should praise you for creating this lovely scenic garden that gives an old world vibe and a bit of a Victorian carousel theme, or if your flamethrower pathway from hell, which is deceptively cheap by the way, is the next hit attraction from Disappointment Land itself. My point is that it's so hard to balance something that offers this amount of diversity of design, and while that may seem like a very specific and extreme scenario that I gave, the fact that it worked well enough to get me started on hard difficulty challenge mode extreme is more than enough for me to warrant mentioning it in this video. Steam integration is possibly the best thing that could have happened to this game. I remember about midway through the open beta where Frontier made the jump onto Steam from their own private publishing launcher, which was still a million times better than a certain other company's launcher, let's just say that. Steam, however, allowed millions of players to make and share cool things like this. Or this. It also let people with complete powerhouse computers make and share things that will destroy the poorer gamer's PC, or at least slow it down to a curb crawl whilst the game frantically tries to load in all of the assets for the spinny dizzle, that rollercoaster made by 5-year-old Timmy, you Not that I'm bitter about that or anything. You go, Timmy. You go with your rollercoaster that does better than mine for no apparent reason. This kind of leads on to another point that I'd not really heard of before this game. Having streamed a fair bit of this near release for another channel, one thing that I heard a lot from people that hadn't bought the game yet was, oh, I'll never be able to create something as good as X person has. And it always struck me as really funny, because when people say this, it implies that if you don't make something worthy of all the praise in the community, then you have failed at the game. Meanwhile, if you look at all of the popular Let's Plays on YouTube, some of the most viewed ones are actually just people making roller coasters that spiral around a mountain penis. I hate to break that to you. The customization is almost overwhelming to people at a first glance, and yet if you break it down and search for simplistic terms just like brick wall, you'll find what you need. Or you could be really lazy and just use a lot of the pre-built assets. They look okay, even if they are a bit basic bitch. In order to support continued content development for this game, it seems that Frontier have implemented a DLC model. There's a few packs already available for purchase. I say already, it's like a year later at this point, but they feature things such as Back to the Future, and then they have some of their own personal packs with ones like Adventure, which just adds another theme that can be researched in-game. They have a fairly reasonable price as well. I bought the Spooky pack for Halloween for streaming purposes, and I have to admit, for the £8 that I paid, I got quite a bit of content for it. I was pretty happy. Having now spent about 150 hours in game at this point over the course of the last year and a little bit, I definitely feel like I am personally starting to reach the limits of what I would like to do in the game world for this point in time. In my last video, I explained that I have no established rating system for games yet. Now, however, I proudly present to you the RNG, is it the meter? Work in progress with the name there. Planet Coaster does so many things, so very nearly perfect. It's a very, very good game, and it still gets my Game of the Year for the year before last, 2016. Yeah, that's right. I know the year. The point is that it still feels incomplete, and I don't know why that is. I'm definitely ready for an expansion. I feel like it needs to grow more and have more of a goal at this point, instead of just being this creative dev kit where you build anything you want. So if I had to give it an actual rating, I would give it a 1 year late security guard out of 10. If I had to pick a negative this time, it's that after playing for so long you start to see what the limits of your own imagination are. I go onto the Steam Workshop and see these amazing floating planets or completely indoor dark rides, and it's truly amazing. Meanwhile, I'm here with my Victorian looking carousel wondering how I can make little Johnny not so much of a scaredy cat that he'll actually pay for the ride. But what do you think? Throw some comments around and tell me what you liked or you didn't like below. Also, I have Twitter happening now if you follow the Big Blue network. Drop me a follow on Adam_RNG. I have reviews coming out on this channel every Saturday, and brand new track of music coming out that you can download for free of charge every Wednesday, including this one that you can download right now. I can't actually hear it, but let's pretend I can, otherwise I'm dancing for no reason. Until then, however, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the new things that I'm sharing, and goodbye!